All right, you mentioned Brandon Aiyuk. Let's pivot to that because he's in the same boat. The hold-in ends at some point. You either take our best offer and get to work, or you don't take our best offer and get to work. Either way, it's time to get to work. Here's both Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch on Brandon Aiyuk being medically cleared to practice, which means get to work.
Brandon Aiyuk practicing today?
I hope so. I actually haven't got to see him today. Players got in late today. I've been doing the 53 and practice squad and kind of still working on it, but I hope so.
When you say you hope so, does that mean he has told you that he is going to practice today?
No.
Is there any reason to believe that today would be different than previous weeks?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything. I've been working on the 53, the practice squad. I haven't talked to him. I know he's been cleared by our doctors, so I hope that he's out there practicing today.
Since your doctors have said he's healthy, if he refuses to practice, would you discipline him?
I'll deal with that when that happens.
Was it communicated to Brandon's camp at any point, say in the last few weeks, that he would be expected to practice starting?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into our communication again, but there's, at some point you got to play.
Yes, that's the whole reality of the hold-in. You don't want to be fined. You don't want to get yourself into a position where, you're creating greater acrimony. And we saw from C.D. Lamb yesterday how antsy he was about not being with the team. So this is the middle ground that works until it doesn't. It works until it's time to go play. And week 1 is approaching for the San Francisco 49ers. So this is very simple at this point. Trade him, which I think with each passing minute becomes harder to justify if you're the Commanders or the Steelers or whoever would be trading for him, because what value are we going to get out of him week 1? He look at everything that's got to happen between now and week 1. Sign him or get to work at $14.1 million. And it just tells me that the 49ers, I just thought at the right time when the clock strikes 12, like the Cowboys did, give the Cowboys credit for knowing when the clock strikes 12. I think the clock struck 12 a month too late, but when it was time to get it done, they got it done. I was confident that the 49ers, when the time comes to get it done, they're going to get it done. But apparently there's something going on there. And somebody asked me this question recently. Are the 49ers kind of low-key dysfunctional? Yes! Yes, they benefit from the presence of John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, but it's the upper reaches of the organization that got a little of that dysfunction going on. And dragging your feet way too long and not valuing your guys properly and not getting these deals done, being a little too cheap, a little too cheap. Sorry, I said it, but that's keeping them from keeping this nucleus together. Because not only do they have Brandon Aiyuk, they got Trent Williams who isn't there.
I was going to make that point. Trent Williams, to me, is the way bigger deal than Brandon Aiyuk. And we just keep talking about Brandon Aiyuk, because he's doing the hold in. Trent Williams isn't even there. So nobody's talking about Trent Williams. That's a huge, this is the all-pro left tackle. This guy is massive for this team. This is a huge absence if he isn't there week 1. So if I'm the 49ers, I'm more concerned about Trent Williams getting on the field than I am Brandon Aiyuk getting on the field. But I agree with you, Mike. I think the trade has passed. I think that's done. I think it's either he's going to get his contract with the 49ers or he's not. And it sounds like they've made their best offer, take it or leave it. So he has a decision to make. What are you going to do at this point? The hold in is not going to work anymore. So make a decision. Either play, don't play, leave the team, get suspended, and that I don't know even what that does for you at that point. But I think the trade is gone. It's passed, and he's going to be with the 49ers. The question is he's going to play? Is he not going to play? If he does play, what kind of shape is he going to be in to start the season? All of those sorts of things come into play at that point. But they need to get Trent Williams in there, and they need to get him in there now.
And look, there's a point where it becomes, and I thought of this earlier when you mentioned, and I'm going to go back to Brandon Aiyuk, when you mentioned that you could possibly get suspended at some point as the player who's holding in, essentially holding out, but present. If you don't practice, if you don't play, they can suspend you for conduct detrimental to the team. And it reminds me of a guy who once upon a time played for the 49ers, got traded to the Ravens. Oh, wait, no, that didn't happen. Then he was traded to the Eagles. And after his spectacular first season in 2004, Terrell Owens wanted more. And the Eagles did the old, you have a contract. We're not going to, that was that they had that mindset of, we have you and we're not going to do, and it was a bad way to run a team. They should have. They should have found a way to make the guy happy. They should have found a way to reward him and give him more protections. He played with a broken ankle in the Super Bowl, for crying out loud. Our mindset has changed in the last 20 years. We were still, I think, as a media operation, everyone, hey, this is how it works. You got the guy under contract, he's got to show up. No, baloney. Terrell Owens was Herculean in 2004. He far exceeded anyone's expectations. The guy just wants some security, and you're hiding behind the contract. They got what they deserved here. But at the same time, what did he do? He decided, if you're not going to pay me, I'm going to be a pain in the ass until you cut me or trade me. And that set off the shirtless driveway sit-ups, the next question press conference on his front lawn with Drew Rosenhaus. Next question, next question, next question. Why the hell are you doing a press conference if all you're going to say is next question, Drew? And then, he got into a fight with Hugh Douglas, allegedly, reportedly, whatever. He took shots at Donovan McNabb, and eventually they said enough. They suspended him for conduct detrimental, and they sent him home with pay, which ended the practice, the next CBA, of sending home players with pay. And I say all that because if Brandon Aiyuk is forced against his will, we want volunteers, not hostages. If he's forced against his will to play when he feels like he's getting screwed financially at $14.1 million, is he going to go out there and give it his all the time? Or is he going to be disruptive? Is he going to morph into a Terrell Owens style pain in the ass? They're forcing him to do that.
Yeah. And I had forgot the TO example, but I think that's a very good one, Mike, of how it can turn really, really bad. And this has the potential, I think, more for the 49ers than for the Bengals, because I do think Jamar Chase will play, and I don't think he will be disruptive. But I think this has the potential to be a TO situation moving forward if he doesn't get the money that he wants.
This whole hold-in thing, and I think one of the reasons it's become more popular is the changes they made in the last CBA to the fine structure, especially if you're not under your first contract. None of the fines are waivable. I still don't know how they pull that off. The fines are more expensive. I mean, Aiyuk, technically his fines, and this was the rule before 2020, but for a guy in his fifth-year option, if you miss preseason games, the fine for missing those preseason games is a regular season game check. That's 3 of them already before you even lose a game check by missing a regular season game, if that's what you even do. It's a weird, toxic situation in Cincinnati and in San Francisco. And now that the CeeDee Lamb thing, which Jerry Jones insured, sucked all the oxygen out of the room, is over, I think people are realizing this is a friggin' mess for the 49ers, and this is a mess for the Bengals, and we don't know how it's going to play out. And it could be guys who are fined and or suspended. It could be guys who feel like they're being forced to do something they don't want to do. And when that happens, you might see and hear things that will make the NFL even more interesting, Charean, than it already is.
Is that possible? Can it be more interesting than it already is, Mike?
Well, that's all we like here. People say, what do you root for? I root for good stories. And even though it's bad for the 49ers and it's bad for the Bengals, it's great for business to see these things happening. But it would be better for the National Football League if they were resolved and the players were treated fairly, paid fairly. These aren't, a couple of mid-level slappies who are being greedy. These are guys who deserve more than what they're getting. I think we can all agree that Brandon Aiyuk, a second-team All-Pro, who had over 1,300 receiving yards on 101 targets, second in the league in yards per target, he deserves more than $14.1 million when the market's at 35. And I think we can all agree that Jamar Chase, who is one of the single best receivers in all of football, deserves more than $4.8 million. And this gets back to that issue with the rookie wage scale from 2011, which ensured that Jamarcus Russell, Ryan Leaf, those are the first two that always come to mind, they don't get paid a ton of money and never earn it. That's fine. But what about the guys who did earn it? What about the guys who were wrongfully deprived that giant pile of money that you're afraid somebody's going to abscond with, like the Hamburglar, because he never earned it? Jamar Chase earned it as a top 5 pick, and he's getting $4.8 million this year. I interviewed the commissioner in 2010 at the league office for the one and only preseason preview magazine, PFT. That was before your time, Charean, and be happy about that, because that was a lot of work for a dead industry. I'm at the grocery store, and I see all these preview magazines. I'm like, who the hell buys those? Why do they even make those anymore? They weren't buying them in 2010. They sure as hell aren't buying them now. Anyway, interviewed the commissioner for that. And I said, what happens when you have guys who did earn the money they didn't get? Well, the teams will take care of the players at the proper time. Oh, they don't. That's the problem. No. There's no reason to wait until year 5 for a guy who has proven he can get it done. And for Jamar Chase, who's proven it in 3 years, there's no reason to wait. Now, they both should have held out. They both should have held out. This would be cleaner, it would be easier, and the pressure would be even greater on the team if they'd held out. Maybe one of the things we're going to learn from this is hold-ins, unless you know the team is going to, at the right time, pay you, it can lead to more problems than it's ever going to solve.
Well, and that's the problem, Mike, that teams don't take care of players. It's just like what you said with the Bengals with T.O. The Eagles said, you have a contract. You're going to play under that contract. Micah Parsons, as you pointed out, should have held out. He should not have been in camp. He should have continued to work out on his own and say, I'm due money, make it, or I'm just going to hold out the year. And he's vastly underpaid for what he's done for the Cowboys and how valuable he is. And they'll still take care of him if he has an injury this year. But what if you have a career-ending injury? They don't take care of guys unless they do something drastic like hold out. And that is why CeeDee Lamb has his deal. Jerry had a quote yesterday, and I didn't circle back to it, and we probably need to today, but Jerry had a quote yesterday about Dak Prescott and said, well, CD wasn't here, but Dak's here. It's basically saying CD got his money because he wasn't here and we had to get him here, so we had to give him his money, but Dak's here, so we don't have to give him his money. And he didn't say Micah, but he might as well have thrown Micah Parsons into that pot, that Micah Parsons is here, so we don't have to give him his money. So it's sad that that's the only way that these guys, as you said, have earned that money, but yet aren't seeing it when they should be seeing it. And you're right, it may be a holdout is much better than a hold in. And maybe that's what we've learned through this offseason is hold ins don't exactly work.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.